It's occurred to me that I haven't actually done a talk on the Heart Sutra for ages, and I thought heart would actually be a nice theme for this session. The calligraphy we have above the altar is heart, shin, which is heart and mind. So I've said the connected heart, the emotional heart, the feeling heart, the heart that is the whole body. This is the cursive script version. There's the kind of more normal version halfway down the other calligraphy we have. But I like this one because I wanted to stress heart and using our heart and working with heart and the Heart Sutra itself as process. I have a slightly odd heart, but I can't look at this cursive form without being reminded of an echocardiogram or something. It's the needle which flicks and moves. And it's movement, it's process, more than a lot of the kanji which we write or a lot of the forms. The cursive forms are all about movement, they're all about connection. So it's just a line with a very particular movement. It comes down, pauses, moves, turns, moves down again, moves, pauses, turns, curves, bleeds out. So I thought I'd try and give a proper Dharma talk, which is to say not a scholarly discourse on the Heart Sutra, though there'll be bits and bats. And I'll base it around the version which we, Ordinary Mind UK, chant, which is a little bit different from the ones that most people know. And so I can't help but talk a little bit about the reasons why it might be a little bit different. I suppose I see there's a slight problem with the Heart Sutra. It's almost the central sutra of Zen, the central sutra of the whole of Mahayana Buddhism. But it seems very mysterious, and people treat it as if it's very mysterious, as if it's kind of so deep and imponderable that there's nothing we can say, and sometimes say, well, you shouldn't even try and understand it. But like most kinds, it's not in the sutra that the mystery is, it's in actually living it out as our lives. That's the mystery, that's the interesting bits, that's the difficult bit. If we're taking a Bible verse, it's directly handed down from God, perfect, immaculate. The Heart Sutra is a complete mongrel. It's a scabby old thing. It's a mess. It's a Chinese translation of a bit of the Prajna Paramita, the Wisdom Sutras, cut out, messed about a bit, tacked onto another couple of things, given to Kanji-sai to speak to the assembled bodhisattvas and disciples of the Buddha. It's a mess, and yet it's perfect. It says what it needs to say exactly. So simultaneously, we can treat it with the utmost respect and feel completely free that we have to come to understand. We have to work with it in our own terms. So, I will just run through. Our version has Kanji-sai, not Avalokiteshvara, because Avalokiteshvara is Sanskrit. Kanji-sai is how we say the first three syllables, the name of Kanon, Kanzeon, Kanji-sai, in Sino-Japanese. Kanon, Avalokiteshvara, is the bodhisattva of great compassion, great caring, the one who hears the cries of the world, according to one etymology for Avalokiteshvara, or sees the cares of the world. So Kanji-sai, the great world caring, moving deeply in life as it is. Moving, not sat in sublime detachment from the world. Moving, active within. Life as it is. Well, again, you might be used to reading deep prajna paramita, wisdom beyond wisdom. Perfect understanding, however we want to translate that. So, as the followers of the school of Joko Beck, I take life as it is as the wisdom. We say in the practice principles, life as it is, the only teacher. Do we mean that? Life as it is, the wisdom beyond wisdom. So, Kanjizai, the great world caring, moving deeply in life as it is, seeing all as not separate. And again, the all there is important. In the other version, it's the five conditions. The five conditions, actually, the five skandhas of traditional Buddhism. They were meant as a description of everything, as a kind of immanent description of the world. How can you experience the world? How can the world exist? Well, you can cash it out into various groups, sensing and perceiving and forming and thinking, and stuff itself. So seeing all as not separate. So ending all pain and sorrow. That this is, that if you see all as not separate, you end, or at least you transform, pain and sorrow. That's a claim, that's a big claim, and it's really important that it's given to Kanjizai, nobody else to say. So then Canon Kanjizai addresses Shariputra, the Buddha's clever disciple, the one who really knows stuff. Say, Shariputra, you know stuff, but this is really important. And actually what the sutra does is then dismantle everything which Shariputra knows. Takes it apart and puts it back together again. And there's going to be a lot of no and a lot of not. And that might make us remember the koan from the Mumonkan that we looked at the other day. A dog has Buddha nature? Yes. No. What? Whatever you think you understand. It's not that. Not. So, okay, Shariputra. This body is not separate. Not separate is this body. This body is not other than not separate. Not separate is not other than this body. Not separate, this body, the same thing. Body. Not necessarily my body, but body. Stuff. Again, you'd probably be used to reading, chanting. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness. Emptiness exactly form. So why am I saying body and not separate? Well, the Sanskrit is rupa. And rupa is this wonderful kind of portmanteau word that means everything and nothing. The one thing it doesn't really mean so much is form in the sense that we think of it. Form as in shape. Form as in something you can abstract and write down and describe accurately with geometry. It's much more, well actually rupa can mean colour. It also means stuff, literally stuff, and that's the sense in which we're dealing with it here. Stuff, the stuff of the world, is, well, empty and not separate. And I'm saying constantly that empty and not separate are, one of Thich Nhat Hanh's famous images, like the two sides of this piece of paper. They're the same thing, they're just expressed differently. They sound very different, but they're the same thing. This body is not separate. Not separate is this body. This body is not other than not separate. Okay, so it's not like there's a bit of this body that's not separate or there's an aspect of this body that's not separate. the entirety is. Nothing that isn't not separate. Not separate is not other than this body. Okay? So there's no not separate somewhere else. I mean, that sounds like nonsense, doesn't it? That there could be a not separate somewhere else. But go do it with emptiness, immediately go, oh, well, where's the real emptiness? Where's the real emptiness? Come on. Okay, I can see it's like, oh, God, I don't exist. And that's completely missing the point and the danger with everything to do with the Heart Sutra. But what it's actually asking us not to do is to reify things, to treat things as if they were separate, to treat things as if they had a separate, real, independent existence. And that's the entire point of the Heart Sutra. Well, one aspect of the entire point of the Heart Sutra. And that's the problem with this term, emptiness. As soon as we got emptiness used as a noun to describe something, well, it must exist. Surely emptiness must exist. But then the actual teaching on emptiness is the emptiness of emptiness. That emptiness is just as empty as everything else. No, don't make it into a thing. Not separate. Not the same, but not separate. So, not separate. This body, rupa, form if we want, but this body is not separate. And then, well, that's the first of the skandhas, the heaps, the aggregate, the conditions, calling that there. Sensing and perceiving and forming and thinking are like this too. Sensing, yeah, well, that's fairly straightforward. Perceiving, yeah, okay. Feel that. I perceive it as my finger touching my skin. Forming. Forming is a process. Heart is a process. I see the world, I perceive the world according to my understanding of the world, and then my perception itself further shapes that understanding of the world. It's just remember it's a process. And thinking, well, thinking. Sometimes we want to call it consciousness or whatever. That's fine. Basically, it's thinking. The rational part, the bits that's making judgments. All the same. Now, those are the traditional 5 bits which we cut experience and reality into in basic Buddhism. And it's not wrong. It's a perfectly valid thing to do, to analyse all those things independently. All the Heart Sutra is saying is that they are not separate either within themselves or from each other. You can't abstract sensing, really, from perceiving or from thinking at the other end. It's all part of process. They're not independent. We can't reify them, we can't make them into things, and if we start treating them as things, then we start going wrong. We imagine we can get pure sensation or pure consciousness or something like that, and then we're lost. Okay. Hey Shariputra, you still haven't got my message? All that is not separate. Okay, so then we start going through into some of the more interesting consequences of this. Not born and not destroyed, not stained, not pure, not perfect, not lacking. If things aren't separate, then in that sense, nothing's happening. There's a relative, this is where it gets tricksy, isn't it? We can say there's the appearance of a thing. Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's not really there. It means it's not there as a separate thing. But that's the sense in which we have not born and not destroyed. Not stained and not pure. Well, obviously, traditional Buddhism has a lot to do with the idea of purity and impurity, or religion tends to. What it's saying is that pure and impure are not separate from each other. They imply each other. They're invariably complemented by them. They exist within the same world. We can't separate out stained from pure. Not perfect, not lacking. One of the things we say about the present moment is, or enlightenment, is realizing that everything is perfect just as it is. That's problematic in itself because it tends to mean, well, generally speaking, we take perfect to mean complete. finished, done with, tick. And yet, life, reality is always process. There's no finish, there's no completion. And maybe what we mean by saying it's perfect is we actually mean it's not lacking. There's nothing missing either. Again, perfect and lacking imply each other. They can't exist without each other. And so the Heart Sutra is pointing us to that not separate aspect. Reality is complex. Okay, so then we're going to go right back into some very traditional Buddhism. Hey, Shariputra, man who knows everything. Not separate sees, no body, no separate body, no sensing or perceiving, forming or thinking. Yeah, still going through this 5 aggregates, the 5 skandhas. Right, this is where we get the nose properly. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. Yes, not as separate in either dimension. Because our perception is always as a whole. We use all our senses together constantly and they interrelate. No sight, sound, smell, taste, touch or thing. Well, the sight is never separate from the eye. It's never separate from the bit of the mind which understands the eye, and it's never separate from the thing out there. Seeing involves all of these constantly. And in the other dimension, all the other senses. So no sight, sound, smell, taste, touch or thing. And actually, no separate seeing, no separate thinking mind. These all presuppose each other. They're all part of the same thing. No cause that leads confusion to old age and death. And this is the traditional 10 causal links we have, starting with confusion or ignorance and going through to old age and death. And in the traditional Buddhist schema that sees rebirth as this repeating cycle, it's that cycle of these links which go round in a circle, which leads to rebirth after rebirth after rebirth, and one has to break those. But again, for not separate, it's not that that doesn't exist, because if old age doesn't exist and death doesn't exist, and according to some people's way they like to think about this stuff, there's no death, fantastic. Go on forever. There's no old age. You just feel like your bones are falling apart. You feel like you've gone doolally. No. It's quite specific. No ending to confusion, old age and death. No ending of ignorance, no ending of death, no ending of old age. These things are real in the way that they're real. They're just not separate from each other, not separate from the rest of experience, and not separate from the rest of the universe. My death will take place within the context of a universe. And then, having demolished Shariputra's sense of separate everything, we go down eventually to the 4 Noble Truths. No suffering, cause, ceasing, path. No knowledge and no goal. No suffering. No separate suffering. My suffering, the experience of suffering, is a part of the universe, a part of everything. No cause. Okay, this is where it gets interesting again. If we've got these, we'll go back to the 10 links, 10 causal links, dependent origination. This leads to that, leads to that, leads to that. And we used to that way of kind of causal thinking from physics or anything like that. Actually billiard balls, isn't it? Tap, transfers the momentum, goes on for a precise path. Tap, hits it at that exact angle, that's the result. Newton, planets. You can describe those movements precisely, exactly. And yet in a universal reality which is not separate, causality becomes much more complicated, much more subtle. You can't isolate single causes. You can, to a degree with planets it works quite well, but this all around us, this is so complex. My experience, my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, that's just me. So complex and so infinitely interrelated to everything else. Every time we name something, every time we cut something out from the background and say, this is a thing, we're inevitably distorting things. We can't help it. And yet it's what we do. It's what we need to do. We can't live without doing it, and it's not wrong. The only wrongness comes when we think, no, this is absolute. This is absolutely separate. I am an independent, entirely separate being. Well, I'm not, for all the infinite reasons which we always talk about. But there's something else going on here which is really interesting, because obviously the Heart Sutra doesn't actually specifically refer to this, but in the philosophical, well, basically Nagarjuna, who we talk about from time to time, points out that if nothing is separate, time isn't separate either. Past, present, future are not separate. That's another Dharma talk. But for now, clearly, if past isn't separate from present, isn't separate from future, our notions of causality become more complex because, physics, time, T0, time, T1, time, T2. Again, that's abstraction, that's treating time as quantifiable, separate. Once we start just opening up to the idea of time as not separate, more complex, what would that even mean? But it certainly means that causality becomes more interesting, more complex. Okay. So it relativizes all knowledge. When it says no knowledge, it just means no absolute knowledge. All knowledge becomes relative. And in fact, as we say, the absolute truth is there is no absolute truth. Doesn't mean we don't know stuff. Obviously it doesn't. No goal. No final purpose. No somewhere we're going. Keep that in mind for when we get to the end. No goal for those helping all awaken, the bodhisattvas, who live life as it is, live within, moving deeply within this wisdom beyond wisdom that is simply life as it is, the only teacher. With no walls to their mind, the walls of ignorance. With no walls to their minds, they feel no fear. Takes us right back to so ending all pain and sorrow. Seeing things as not separate, or rather perhaps experiencing things as not separate, is the key, a Dharma door, to not experiencing fear, to not experiencing suffering in the way that one is used to, imagining oneself to be a separate being. How does that work? Subtle, but it's the fruit of the practice. They feel no fear and so live beyond all views and all views of nirvana. In this sense, all views, opinions, hearsay, but also we're probably including every time I say, no, it's like this, it's not like that. All views, they live beyond all views, as in they see all views as relative. As yes, from this perspective, this makes sense. From that perspective, things will look differently. It's not the same as saying everything's just simply relative, moral relativism or whatever. But it does ask us not to take anything as absolute. Live beyond all views and all views of nirvana. And again, if we're thinking about enlightenment or attainment or wisdom or realization, nirvana, is nirvana somewhere else, a different psychological state? These are all ways we can imagine it. These are all ways of reifying it, making it a thing. So actually we're saying the bodhisattvas live beyond all views of nirvana. What would they need with nirvana? What would they need with views? Nirvana obviously relates to this idea of no goal. No goal? Well, no, because you don't have a view of nirvana in that sense. All past, present and all future Buddhas take their refuge in life as it is, prajna paramita, and find there their true complete awakening. This understanding, seeing all not separate, go right back to the beginning again. Find there their true complete awakening. Greatest mantra, clearest mantra, unmatched mantra, peerless mantra. What a path. What a fantastic path. Cure for all who are suffering. Well, that's the point. That's the point of seeing things as not separate. Cure for all who are suffering, trustworthy and not false. Speak the mantra, life as it is. And actually we tend to chant this, everybody seems to chant it the same way, and it's just the way that I learnt it when I learnt that. The Sanskrit is slightly different from that. It's gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasangate, bodhi, swaha. Same thing. It's not quite Sanskrit, it's not quite right. So we tend to translate it as gone, gone, completely gone, gone across. Enlightenment. Oh. But it's not a proper past tense, and that's interesting. I'm not saying gan, or, sort of some dialect form which doesn't quite work. But I stress that because it brings us back to time. This idea is not the complexity of time and this idea of crossing to the other shore, except we're already there. Paradox. Yeah, but it's to do with the nature of time. Because, get back to nirvana, which we'll talk about, the identity, not a hair's breadth of difference between nirvana and samsara, between reality as we experience it and reality as it is, or is that a stupid way of putting it? No difference, and therefore we're already there, where it is we're trying to go to. Because past and present are not separate. And the word which I want to use for that and take us toward, because it's a really important word, and I think it's actually the word that Thich Nhat Hanh used to use for what in Zen we tend to call the absolute, which is the eternal dimension. And we tend to think of eternal in terms of duration, in terms of something which stays the same and lasts. That's the opposite of what it is, because the eternal is that which is always present. And we'll talk a bit about that tomorrow. So we'll keep coming back to these things. The eternal is simply that which is always present. And again, as soon as I say that, we want to imagine a kind of, maybe I can see it. It's there, or it's, there's this kind of parallel, or above, or below, or within, or rolled up inside, or something. The eternal, in this sense, is just the presentness of the present, because past and present and future are not separate. And so, yeah, okay, maybe that does sound a bit mysterious. Maybe that's something to get our heads around. In fact, beginning to really explore the meaning of not separate as it turns up in my life, in relation to life as it is, well, that is a lifetime's practice, isn't it? That's actually living out the connection of my heart in its fullest sense, this process, this endless process, living that out in relation to the reality of the universe, of each other, of all that is. Well, tomorrow I'm going to talk about, just to give us a hard time and not make life easy, I'm going to talk about our eponymous koan. We are the Ordinary Mind School. Obviously comes from the koan in the Momakan. Ordinary life is the way, which again we'll touch on to this idea of life as it is, but also the eternal. The only teacher. Thank you.